Alright, we need to talk about Tussie-Mussies. In the Victorian era, there was this fad where you could give small bouquets of flowers to someone, which you can still obviously do today if you'd like. But it wasn't just bouquets of flowers. Each specific flower had a particular meaning. So culture took on this botanical Morse code of sorts and had this sweet idea where you could give someone 4 or 5 flowers and it would have very specific meaning. For instance, I could hand someone a small little bouquet that has some phlox in it, an orchid, a red tulip, and some violets, and they would know what I meant. You're beautiful. Our souls are entwined. I'll always be true. I love you. Now, the fun flip side of these sweet little nothings was the fact that you could get a little passive, if not outright aggressive, with the types of flowers that you chose to give. And in the same way, you could hand a very similar looking bouquet to someone with a very, very different meaning. So you could be walking along the street, someone tosses a bouquet in your face, and you take a closer look at it. What is this? What's this? Marigold? Pink larkspur? Peony? What, is that snapdragon? Oh yes, and this is a very different meaning. You're a cruel, fickle liar, and I'm bashful. Tussie-Mussie is an 18-card microgame designed by Elizabeth Hargrave and published by Button Shy Games. It plays in about 15 minutes for 1 to 4 players. Over the course of a round, players will be collecting flowers to build their own 4-card Tussie-Mussie. On a player's turn, they flip the top 2 cards from the 18-card deck. They then decide which card to offer face up to the player on their left and which to offer face down. Whichever card their neighbor does not take goes into their own tableau in front of them, staying either face up or face down depending on which was taken. Once everyone has a card in front of them, play then alternates until all players have 4 cards in front of them. Cards must not only be kept face up or face down, but they must be kept in their original order that they were received from left to right. A player may look at their own face down cards, but no one else's. At the end of the round, players score their 4-card hand, sliding the face-down cards closer to themselves on the table so as to not confuse their orientation when they flip them. Each card has an effect that will earn points, cause cards to be flipped face up or face down, or other in-game effects to happen. Face-down cards are considered keepsakes, while face-up cards are considered part of the bouquet. After scoring, players play 2 more rounds. Whoever has the most points wins the game. Now, Tussie-Mussie is actually a game that I played for the first time last year when it was one of the winners of the GenCant Print and Play competition. And now, having played it for the first time almost a year ago and coming at it again with a fresh perspective, I'm as equally impressed now as I was then. And look, for me, this game has just about everything you'd want from an 18-card microgame. And in terms of microgames, we've had Love Letter, which has long been the gold standard for what type of gameplay you can expect from something like this. But if anything, in the last few years, Button Shy has shown us that that isn't necessarily the case. There's a lot more that can be offered through these types of games. And Tussie-Mussie is a game that does just that. It takes your expectations for what can be done with a deck of 18 cards and really kind of flips it on its head. It's clever in all the ways that it needs to be clever without ever being overly convoluted, because it is just a tiny little filler game. It requires you to be able to read your opponents, to manipulate their hand as well as your own. But it is a small micro game, and if you know that you don't like micro games, if you know that you're absolutely against any sort of luck of the draw or having to read your opponents or bluff your way through things, keep a straight face, this isn't going to be a game for you. And that's something that you need to keep in mind really when you go into any sort of game, but in particular with an 18-card game. But there's a lot more reasons to get something like this. First and foremost, it's quick and uncomplicated. It's the type of game that well, it's right. Where is it? I thought I had it on me. This is not an imposing package. When I pull this out and say, hey, do you want to play this game? Very few people are going to be intimidated by this the way that they're intimidated by something like Argent the Consortium. The decisions are interesting, and you don't have to make decisions that take necessarily a lot of time to come to, but you still have to understand that you're doing the same thing. You're offering 2 cards to one person, and they decide which one they're going to take. And so you may want one over the other, but the decision on which one to reveal to them and which one to hide, that's the tough part, and that's the really fun and interesting thing about this game in terms of reading your opponents. And it's that whole manipulation and maneuvering of your own hand, your own Tussie-Mussie, that plays right into that, because you know what you need, you know what you want, and the cards that you're getting, you have to build off of in order to maximize the amount of points that you get. But ultimately, your fate is in the hands of the other player, and so you have to read and manipulate them as best as you can. The theme and the art is just a blast. Like, I love the idea of Tussie-Mussie. It's one of those things where I had never heard of a Tussie-Mussie before, and looking into it, it's one of those things I wish was more commonplace now. It's a way cooler fad than maybe something like Tamagotchi or Slap Bracelet. I'm sorry, I love Tamagotchi and Slap Bracelets. That's not true. I shouldn't have said that. But it's a fun thing to sort of play along with, and all the cards say what the flowers would have meant if they were put in a Tussie-Mussie. And like all button shy games, it's inexpensive and it has a super tiny footprint. And this is something that can literally, I mean, the very definition of a pocket game, something you can, and I do, carry around. I don't necessarily play it all the time, but it takes up no space. I was thrilled to hear that this was being picked up by Button Shy after the print and play contest. It's a great little game. It holds up even a year after my original play of it, and it's one that I do strongly recommend that you take a look at. For instance, I could hand someone a red tulip, some phlox, an orchid. What else? If someone tosses a bouquet at you and it consists of snapdragon, pink larkspur, someone tosses you a bouquet and it consists of a pink marigold, nope. Snapdragon, pink larkspur, marigold,